Shut up.
Righto. The third session of our Burning Wheel game, third and final as far as this particular series is concerned, is called Your Day in Court. Because as we recall last time, we ended with Bryn, the young sorceress, having exhausted herself yet again with the power cosmic, and Gunther crouched over her, checking if she's okay, having just dispatched with much gusto the less than less than sane, I guess would be the right word. Less than sane Lord Stravit, the Lord of Hocken Village, among other things, in a duel. Or at least it was going to be a duel until Gunther resorted to less than, the late Lord Stravit is what he's called now, because Gunther gave him a quick 1-2 maneuver into the noggin and then with the sword to the throat. The code duello entirely absent, thrown out the window, and Stravit thrown down, cast down into the ground. You smote his ruin on the floor, and onto this scene with Gunther gripping a bloodstained sword and also the sword of the late Lord Stravit, walked in Gunther's father, Lord Danek, and also Lord Buttel, the bailiff of Duke Verdorben. And we continue our adventures, I guess, or shenanigans, at least, with a scene change. So we are no longer in the village of Hocken, or the Manor Stravit for that matter. We will pick up. There is a travel montage of several horses riding through the wintry woods that we have seen before, the primordial forest, inside which lie the villages Hocken and also Mecklenburg. Our two heroes and also Lord Danek and Lord Buttel ride through the wintry landscape to the Duke's castle called Lowenhöhle, which is in our common parlance is called Lion Hollow. We have a picture there in Roll20 to sort of get us in the mood. It's far too summery, so just imagine the landscape in Roll20 as a winter version instead. So you ride with the bailiff to Lowenhöhle, and very few words are exchanged. There's a lot of silent understanding between you, as it was indeed the bailiff himself who originally brought the word to you that you should go to Hocken to see what's going on in the hinterlands. And you ride with the lords to the castle courtyard. Servants take your horses, stow them into the stables. We have, let's not forget, one of the very important and successful members of the party, so often left without notice, Hans, the goodest of boys, also has followed you all this way.
He is going to be key to this whole scenario.
I believe so. He's going to be the key witness in this.
What, in case like Timmy's falling down the well or something
Yeah.
similar?
Yep. So from the courtyard, Stravit motioned for you to follow him. He takes you to a remote room in the castle. It's early evening, so the sun is just very low in the sky. Everything's painted in very stark contrast with the because it's winter, so the light is coming at a very heavy angle. So it's basically one side is all light, and the other side is just everything is in shadow and darkness. And you follow the bailiff, and Lord Danek bids you farewell. He gives a meaningful look to Gunther, which Gunther might remember from his childhood as his look of, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And he walks off. He walks off, and you follow the bailiff through the shadowed. Because it's a fairly large castle, so there's a couple of gardens that you pass through. These fairly tight corridors, and you end up in this remote room in the castle, into which the bailiff motions you, and there's a couple of beds there for you. It's a fairly well appointed, obviously for noble use.
Am I in irons or?
No. The bailiff took them out when he met you at Manor Stravit, as if to like signify, like, okay, we have business now at the castle.
Gonna go?
Yeah,
okay.
And because the assumption is he's good with you, he trusts you implicitly, and he's not hostile towards you. You probably don't want to kick off a whole bunch of problems with the bailiff, because the bailiff is next to the Duke, and that's real bad news if you piss off the Duke of the land. Mm-hmm. So it's a fairly well appointed room for you. There's a divan, a couple of tables, some chairs as well, and a fireplace. And the bailiff motions a servant from the corridor outside, motions the servant in to start the fireplace, to get it going for you, because it's winter still, so it's very cold, and this wasn't being used, so it's kind of chilly. But the servant starts the fire, and you have the opportunity to lay down your burdens and get all comfortable. Let me reference my notes here for the bailiff's quick words to you before he leaves you to your own devices.
I was going to say, is there any chance I can get in with a quick early roll here?
Yeah.
This is sort of like as we're being sort of led to where we're being kept. Yeah. And I think I understand the circles thing correctly, but obviously please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe I can roll that to like locate people, you can get information from and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I know that Gutterung's been operating in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, like, obviously, even though he's a sorcerer, like a dark sorcerer, he can only be in one place at the same time at one time.
Presumably,
yeah. Yeah, presumably. So I'm assuming he's like a lot of sort of sorcerers. I'm assuming he's got like people who act as his eyes and ears, like agents, effectively, like throughout the area to give him like the heads up. Like, the witch hunters are on the way or whatever, or like dispatch another zombie bear or whatever he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also thinking that probably my uncle's probably got likewise in the area. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to roll circles if I can to basically see whether any of these like agents of like Gutterung or my uncle are sort of like in the crowd as we're being sort of led through.
Okay. So the way that circles work is it's not so much about like you rolling for perception, as in like I want to see if someone's in the crowd. If you want someone to be in the crowd, you can roll circles.
I do indeed.
Yeah. So let me get up that thingamajig.
And I'm specifically trying to locate like an agent of my uncle's, because I'm sort of assuming that even though we sort of parted on fairly bad terms, he's obviously interested in me, or he wouldn't have tapped me up as an apprentice in the first place, and we're related. So I'm hoping he's sort of like, I'm assuming that he's like kept an eye on me, probably via these agents, so that I wouldn't be aware of it. But I'm thinking maybe like I've seen one of these people before, didn't really peg them at the time, and I'll suddenly spot them again. I'll be like, oh, what's that dude doing here?
Yeah.
I've seen that guy like following me before. Like he's got no reason to be here.
Also, just to make it clear, both of you have one what's called relationship. So Bryn here has a relationship to her uncle Abigail Gravenmore, who is, and this is what we know about him, he is an evil necromancer and also a courtier at court. So he's going to be around in the castle. And Gunther has...
So he's definitely here.
Yeah, he's here. Yep, for sure. As is your father, Lord Danek, who came here with you. And you both can access your relationships without like a special role, because it's a part of the character. So if you want to, you can write a message, for example, and hand it off to like a servant here, and just like, please go take this to like Abigail Gravenmore, and the message will get to him. Or you could just walk up to his room and talk to him as well.
No, I'll send a message to him using that then instead of making the roll. And my message is basically going to say, it's just going to say that Lord Stravit is dead, which it's not exactly news. He was dabbling in the dark arts with an inexpert hand. I'll be fairly scathing about his like piffling magical abilities. And then I'm going to say, it appears that I was mistaken about educating these people about magic in a different way. I can see that what you said originally when I was your apprentice now has wisdom. And assuming I make it out of this, I would beg your indulgence for my youthful indiscretions, and would be interested in beginning my apprenticeship anew. Now I more fully understand your position.
Okay.
And I'll fold that up tightly, and it'll be written in the normal sort of like noble like double speak, you know. So like basically someone's not going to look at him and like, oh, evil magic's afoot. But,
all these pentagrams in the margin.
Oh, he's written it in rat's blood. What's going on?
Yeah.
But, it'll be in a very sort of feminine, like flowing hand, which is like, sort of cursive, which would be quite difficult, presumably for the peasants to read if they can read. And
they don't.
Yeah, it'll make a lot of references to like sort of shared experiences and stuff like that. So if you didn't know the two of us, it wouldn't make a great deal of sense.
Yep. Okay. So you said about writing that as you arrive in the quarters, because there's the writing supplies, right? So you get to writing there, and you're going to be able to just hand it off to a servant, and they will take it to your uncle. So as you write,
confined to quarters.
And this is because you're talking with the
head.
the bailiff. No, you're talking with the bailiff. So as you arrive there and Bryn starts writing immediately, you address the bailiff, which for whom I have a picture here, the only picture for this session. So here we have Bootle, Lord Bootle, as he's actually titled. And so you turn to him and just, I'm confined to quarters, and he shakes his head. And he takes off his cap and sighs heavily, looks at the servant who's trying to get the fire going, and says, "Whatever you think, you've committed a crime. Stravit, a noble and a peer of the realm, has been murdered, ostensibly by you." He motions to Gunther, because you had the swords, right? Because Bryn was unconscious. I sent you out there to take care of things, not actually to make matters worse. And he looks at you gravely now, turning away from the servant starting the fire. Stravit was a favorite of the Duchess. So now I have to perform my duties to the very letter of the law. I will hear your case and pronounce judgment before the whole court tomorrow.
Can I hear this going on?
Yeah, you can hear him.
As I'm writing, sort of, you know, in that voice,
taking it all in.
In that voice that people do, you know, when they're writing to themselves and they're sort of reading it out to themselves. I'm not gonna write this, but I'm just gonna be sort of writing away and saying this so I can be heard. But so I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't realise I was saying anything. I'm just gonna be like, oh yes, unfortunately, the noble Lord Stravit chose to challenge my companion to an honourable duel and was found to be the inferior man. But apparently that's classified as murder in these parts rather than simply the noble way of resolving things. Because obviously one of my instincts is never let him forget I'm a noble, and I'm like, it was a noble duel, he lost, suck it up.
I take this all in, and I'm sort of like nodding at what he's saying. Take a breath and say, "It's true. You sent me there to make things better. And it is in my view that the only crime I'm guilty of is doing my duty, as I was told to do."
He puts a hand on your shoulder, squeezes a bit, and says, "You have your liberty now. Collect your wits and attend to yourself." Brushes off like some, I don't know, like caked blood or dirt from your shoulder.
Come what may, Hawken has been made better by what I did.
He nods and turns away and says over his shoulder, "I will send for you in the morning." And you can see outside as Bootle leaves the quarters. So like you're not confined anywhere. The implication here is if you run,
Guilty.
there's only one verdict to make. So and you're nobles, so like you don't belong to the dungeons. That's for peasants. As Bootle leaves, there's a guy in mail plate, as you also have. Like you don't have the full plate, you have the plated mail, so basically chainmail and then segments of plate armor on top. There's a knight outside, very obviously waiting for Bootle, and he's one of those types that if this was a Disney movie, you could tell he's a villain. He has long blonde hair, like annoyingly perfectly curled at the tips, so it's like straight up to here, and then it starts curling, and they fall perfectly onto his perfectly maintained shoulder. What's the pauldrons? And he like makes show of like bowing properly to Bootle, and immediately starts like conversing with him as Bootle leaves, and he gives you like a poisonous look, Gunther. He looks like someone who's like, "I've got you now," in his eyes.
Do I know this person personally on like at a personal level or reputation?
Let's see.
Oh, it's going to require one of those dice rolls.
And also, do I know any dark secrets about him?
Oh,
Ooh.
it's all coming together.
Let's see.
I sense your villainy.
Oh well, he has a reputation, and this might sound familiar, Gunther. He has a reputation of being a poor young knight of very little means but great promise. He's an ambitious young knight.
Ambitious young knight.
In the service of the bailiff.
Aren't we all?
And I don't think you don't necessarily need to roll for anything about this, really. He's a knight. He obviously has it in for you. You make of that whatever you will, but he's serving the bailiff.
Do I know if Lord Stravit has any sons? Like, could he be a distant relative?
Now this is something you can roll.
Give it.
So Lord Stravit Wise, I think, might be a thing.
I don't think I have that.
Yeah, probably not. It's a very specific skill to have.
I'm looking at my skills to pay the bills.
Sorry, what was the skill that was called for?
You can use your, if you wanted the secret stuff. You have family secrets, yeah. But Gunther doesn't have that or anything, really. So The
I suppose I
Gunter's.
could roll ancient history if he's a really old relative.
Oof. Does, is he a vampire?
I mean, I guess it makes it a new skill if I
Yeah,
do this.
yeah. That would be in the training section. I'm gonna add it there for you.
Okay. Thank you. I was about
Yep.
to say, do I need to add this?
Yeah, I'll do it for you.
FYI, people watching, I'm probably going to fail this roll because this is the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
you never
it's
know.
it's a rough time, but
Because you know, if like he's got a son, a cousin, like a really loyal janitor that's got it out for me, it'd be good to know.
A janitor who inexplicably has a full knightly armor.
You turn around and his scabbard on his back looks like a mop sticking out of it.
Yeah, they call him the mop knight.
Yeah. They call me the cleaner.
Yeah, I am the one who cleans.
I'm here to sweep up justice.
I'm here to take out the trash. That's you, boy. So I think it's not super difficult. I'm looking at this. There's a specific Family Secrets wise thing that they actually wrote out for this with like stuff for different obstacles, which we're gonna use maybe. But I'm looking at it for like a reference thing, and I think we're going with obstacle 2.
Do I get
just
a slight bonus?
No, because it's you don't have the skill. You don't get
Well,
jack.
I'm from Hocken.
Yeah. Well, you would get because you are a local. Let's say you get like an advantage die on
This is
this.
how you do it, guys. This is how you win.
And this is what Burning Wheel is about. Like you negotiate and you make a case, and then you go forward.
I'm not just a local. I'm also a local noble of a family. So
and that is true. That is true as well.
Sphere.
And that would be that would be more of a thing if you actually knew about nobles at all, but you don't. You don't.
Fair point. Okay. So what is the obstacles 2?
Obstacle 2, yeah. And if you roll it from the being learned, the thing that I just added,
yeah, I am. Yeah.
It should take care of all the rest. So it's just obstacle 2 and 1 advantage thing.
And 1 advantage.
Yeah.
Is that for what I wrangled a second ago?
Yeah. The fact that you actually come from the same place that the Stravits do. So
yeah, so I didn't add that in. So modifier 1.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any additional complications?
No.
Okay.
You're quite fucked enough already.
Close though.
And no 6s, so unfortunately that's not gonna happen.
Has he got one of the points where you can like double your dice pool there?
No, there's nothing to do right now.
No, that's fine. I mean, you never know. I tried.
So the thing here is, you just don't know. You were sent by your father to basically page at the court at a very early age, so you didn't have the sort of like growing up experience in Hocken where you could have met.
I take another view. Like if his family, if his siblings were notable enough, I would know of them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But just to make it clear, we don't yet know if Stravit actually had kids, because you don't know, and the role did not establish that he doesn't.
And the guy that does know is Noctoken. So. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you pondered that. So Bryn, what did you want to try to figure out?
Okay. Basically, what I'm hoping to find is some sort of like family secret or some sort of stain on his reputation that I can basically throw in his face to anger him. Because one of my things that I've been sort of cleaving to all the way through, one of my instincts is that Gunter is like the sort of epitome of like the noble soul, as far as I'm concerned. He's like whiter than white, and he's probably one of the few people I've met who actually sort of like lives up to the ideals of nobility in actuality. Most of the other people I've met, they've all got some sort of dark secret like lurking in their closet, and this fool standing here is like, oh, you fought like a noble duel and you won, so I'm blatantly going to use this to sort of see you like thrown on the trash heap and claw my way a little bit closer to that sweet prize at the top of the pile. So I'm looking for something that I can basically, like a family secret or something shameful that he's done, that I can basically sort of throw in his face just to remind him that, like, don't be thinking you're like on the same level as Gunter.
Okay.
And also, if I can infuriate him enough that like he actually like strikes me, then I would just be like, "That's you done, son."
Oh yeah, the violence. If it's not an actual duel,
Yeah.
with all that entails, violence is gonna be a. If you get caught, very bad idea in the castle.
But basically, if I can infuriate him enough so he strikes me, I'll be like, one, you've struck a lady of a noble family who was supposed to be sort of in protective custody, and I'm hoping we can sort of overall, I'm hoping that I can use that in the trial because I'll be like, because I'm going to compare the fact that Gunter fought a noble duel by the sort of laws of noble society, and the people who are sitting in judgment of us can't even like keep that shit under control in their own house.
So you want to figure out if this knight following Bootle around
Yeah.
has some sort of a shameful secret.
Yeah, so something that's going to sort of like trigger him and sort of like inflame his anger.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Whiskey. I think we can go with obstacle 4.
Okay.
Oof.
Yeah, because it's there's no easy pickings with this kind of stuff.
No, that's fine. Let's
With
risk it
nobles.
for a biscuit.
Yeah.
Okay. Obstacle 4.
Oof. Well, that something went wrong there. Oh, because you have wounds. Oh no. You're hurt from your.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Let's actually see about that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
Yeah.
my exhaustion as well, but I didn't want to like spoil the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that now because it's pertinent. Okay. Where are we? So what I'm looking up now is how long does it take for you to recover from the couple of light wounds, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it was 2 light wounds that I'm currently suffering from.
Yeah. Because they're not extremely serious and they don't get worse on their own. They actually heal on their own, but it does take time.
I must say, while you're looking that up as well, I actually quite like the fact that the wounds sort of give you dice penalties. So I know it's a bit of a sort of like a death spiral, if you want to call it that, but it does make sense. And like, I've been beaten around and like attacked by zombies and I'm exhausted. It's more difficult for me to like keep myself together and sort of like coherently act. So that I actually quite like that.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of interesting like system mastery stuff tied into the fact that you get dice penalties and
Well, that's. I mean, I've obviously we know that like sort of resting to heal mechanics exist in other games, and there's some games where like you can basically only use your abilities like a set number of times, like until you rest. But I quite like the fact in Burning Wheel that you can keep using your abilities as much as you want, but certainly with like sorcery, there's consequences. You become more exhausted, you might and you eventually end up passing out. And obviously, if you get wounded, it's not a case of you can't use your abilities anymore. It just becomes more difficult until you've healed.
Yep. Okay, so life wounds don't need treatment before you can recover from them. So let's see. I'm gonna swap you over to the stats and skills thing. So these are health rolls, and health is right there.
I've got it. Yep.
Yeah. So it's an obstacle 2 health test. Sorry, to get that. Oh, abysmal rolls tonight.
Yep.
So and then for the second wound, because they're separate.
Oh, right. Okay. So you get 2 rolls. Okay.
Yeah, you can roll for each.
And I presume it's the same obstacle as well. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So you recover from one of them on the way back, and Yep. And if you get the other one, well, we can have. Let's just, as like an immediate thing, we can do like timey-wimey bullshit right now because that's where we are now.
Yep.
So as you're getting situated in your rooms, the fireplace is lit. There's a plate of some meat, but a whole bunch more of cheese and bread is brought to you. A cask of wine is opened and brought to you. And there's a servant there to tend whatever needs you might have. And one of those, Bryn, clearly, is that you might be benefiting from some medical attention. So I think, because it's not so much that you have like cuts and bruises and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So I think they bring in like a herbalist, or maybe it's like the surgeon or whatever. But the idea is that you are made a special tea.
Oh, would it be possible that just to like tie things in, that possibly like the herbalist's like the one I give the message to like take it to my uncle, because like it sounds like the sort of person like he'd want to be like on fairly good terms with, to get him like special herbs and like preparations and whatnot.
Yep, that is fine. So the herbalist is brought over. The herbalist makes you this tea that's supposed to help with your situation, and you can hand the letter over to the herbalist. So I'm gonna make a roll for the herbalist here to see if they actually succeed, and then we can redo the 0 roll that you did, because I did not recall how the treatment thing works, and this is treatment that is very much available to you before you actually recover from the thing. So I will roll the herbalist. Let's see here, herbalism, and they're in the ducal castle, so they have B4 because they are not trash. And I'm gonna give them 1 modifier, because these people definitely have noble wise. This person is used to nobles requesting all kinds of weird bullshit that he's supposed to summon from the forest floor. So he knows about that stuff, or rather he knows about you as a customer. So here we go, and the obstacle is 2. Let's see how he do. Oh, nope. Okay, so the tea is fine, but it's he put too little of the good stuff in. Right.
It's fine. I'll still be very grateful, and then like I say, obviously I'll slip him the letter. So.
Yep.
I'll basically be like, I've not wrote this in the letter, but I'll be like, I'll tell my uncle that any help he can provide would be greatly appreciated, and then I'll like slip him the letter.
Yep. He understands your meaning and departs. Okay. So you remove the 1 wound.
Yeah. Has there been any effect on my sort of tax level?
All right. Let us see. Because it's... How much tax do you have?
Four. And just to explain for anyone who's watching, tax is basically the levels of exhaustion, because I was casting spells without having any rest the last session.
And it's like 4 hours of rest per tax to recover it. So I think, given it's not a short ride, I think you can just do away with all that stuff. It's not like active rest, but like we can fold that in. And also, the light wound doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
So I think for the evening and the night, you're gonna have it, but next day when the actual like hearing is gonna be, you will have recovered from the light wound as well. But for now, that still burdens you. Okay, so we've got all that. Did you mark that health?
Yeah, I've corrected that. So do you want me to make the family secret roll again?
Oh yeah. So, let's redo that, because it would have been done with 1 less.
And it was obstacle 4.
Obstacle 4, yeah.
Yep.
1-6, but it's 3 away. So yeah.
In which case, to be honest, actually, sort of looking at this this knight with his gold ringleted hair, I'll be grudging about it, but I'll be grudgingly respectful if I have to speak to him, because I'm like, most people I look at, I'm like, I've got some dirt on them. Whereas, despite the fact he seems like a bit of a sort of a wannabe Gunter as far as I'm concerned, maybe he's not so bad, because like I don't know anything bad about him, so who knows? Maybe he is just a good knight.
And this is what the failure means, and again, like we haven't really followed the like proper format for rolling stuff, but it doesn't need to be like that with a lot of these things as far as wises aren't concerned. But see, the failure thing here is you actually do know about him. So his name is Akos. I'll put it in chat.
Interesting.
And he has an interesting story. Let me try to find it out. Okay. So Akos is a nephew of one Lord Sisi. I'll put this in chat as well. That's not particularly impressive or interesting. It's just his family ties. Where is this? Oh, here we go. So yeah. So the thing that you do remember is he's the nephew of Lord Sisi, and Butul originally was, because he is not from as noble stock as you. At least he's not titled by birth, but he's titled now, and that's because 5 years ago, Butul was serving under Lord Sisi in a war, and he saw Lord Sisi's horse stumble, and of course the Lord himself tumbled into the ground, and he was going to be trampled to death by the opponent's cavalry. And Butul raced to his side and helped him fight his way out. It was one of those moments from innumerable films and whatnot where there's two people and it's just the chaos of war, and they somehow made it out by themselves. And Lord Sisi was saved that day, and Butul was awarded the title of Lord. He doesn't have land, but he's a Lord now, and he got promoted to be the bailiff because of this act of heroism. Presumably, also Lord Sisi wants his nephew to, well, be catapulted to good position by Butul. So basically, he's kind of coming from good stock, a nice family with ties to Butul, spotless record. There's nothing that sticks to him aside from all the kisses sent by the ladies that he charms.
Yeah, I was going to say, in which case, since obviously I know this, and I know obviously me originally sort of thinking, oh, everyone's got a bit of dirt on them, and then I'm like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I know this guy. Like, he comes from this sort of like heroic line that have been sort of raised up from common stock because of their own actions rather than simply an accident of birth. I'm actually going to be sort of like fairly sort of like taken with him. You know, I'm like, yeah, do you know what? I know that obviously like Gunter's my sort of measuring stick for what a noble should be, and I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, Gunter's sort of like a poor knight. You know, it's due to his actions that he's like, he sort of raised himself up, and like this guy's doing the same. So at some point during the evening, as this sort of this night Akosh is about, I'll make some comment towards him, and unlike the sort of scathing, sort of goading retort I was originally going to give him, I'll actually just sort of say that it does actually makes me feel safer that we're being guarded by someone from such a heroic line. And then I'll also say, assuming that you are as heroic as the tales of your uncle, and given your position, I'm sure you must be.
Yeah, so this is sometime later in the evening when you have concluded your business in your own room, and so Günther, do you? Because Bryn is obviously going to go about and socialize, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in the castle, right? Because this is the ducal court, so the seat of the Duke's power. The Duke is not here, but let me show you in Roll20. There is a list.
Was the Duke here when I was last here?
No, the Duke's been away for a bit. He's in the eastern borders of the dukedom, tending to business. Yeah. But the Duchess is here. Let me, if I can just, oh, there we go. So there's a thing on Roll20.
Oh, this is more than just a little thing. This is a list. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a preamble, and then a list of individuals that you know for sure to be in the castle.
And what I know, just from what I've heard so far, is the Duchess quite liked Stravit when he was alive.
Yeah, Bootle just said that the Stravit was the Duchess's favorite. You don't know what that's about. Yeah, you don't know what that's about. You might want to investigate that if you if that strikes your fancy. But Bootle just said that was news to you.
Your benefactor and now your judge. Oh, Stravit. Yeah.
Yeah, Stravit has a rap sheet. It's not good. Also, I'll amend it because you know about stuff now.
I think it says Lord Donick that Gunnar has a relationship. Well, yeah, I mean, he's my papa.
Yeah, he's the father.
You see, this list is not who I was looking for, but I'm guessing I can ask you what I'm looking for. So my intentions are as follows. I'm probably gonna walk around, not with my. No. I'll carry a dagger, but not a sword. Because that's probably bad. I will wear my armor. I'm going to first go to the kitchens and get something for my dog.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Basically, whatever you want.
Look after a knight looks after his charges, even if it is not a squire. You do right by what you command.
Noblesse oblige is what they call that.
Exactly. Then I will inquire what Bryn is going to do, and if anything I can do to help her inquiry.
I'll say, well, Gunter, you may or not be aware, my uncle is at court, so I intend to. I've already dispatched a letter to him. I intend to seek his aid because I'll lower my voice so only Gunter can hear me. I intend to seek his aid because it is my, and I'll sort of reach out and twitch your forearm and say, it's my belief that you acted entirely appropriately in the situation. You were challenged to a duel by Lord Stravit, and he proved to be the lesser man to his cost. You acted far more honourably and far more nobly in that situation than Lord Stravit himself, as I knew you would. And it is my intent, if nothing else comes out of this trial, I will make that plain to those who dare, those who have the temerity to sit in judgment over one such as yourself, who through the sweat of your brow and the strength of your steel and the goodness of your character has raised yourself up to your present position, even in this dark, accursed, tainted place. Even if we are found guilty, whatever may happen afterwards, I will make it plain to those people that not one of them is fit to sit in judgment over someone like yourself.
I thank you for your support, Rain. And I understand your frustration, but it is the way of things that our system works, that we must stand an answer to what we have done, whether it be a crime or justice. And I am happy to do so. But
I squeeze your arm in a comforting manner.
Unfortunately, the witnesses of that event are either dead, here, or fled. Hopefully, the people at Hocken are having a better time of it now that we've taken care of some of that malcontent.
I would ask one thing from you, Lord Gunter. Would you give me the cloth with the ichor from the creature that we fought in the village still instained upon it?
Of course.
And I sort of take that off you if you're willing to give it me.
I'll sort of I'll give you my kind of weapon cleaning kit, for want of a better word. It has a whetstone, some cloths, some oil. It is in there, but be careful. That substance apparently was dangerous.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take that, and like I say, I'll be very careful. I've still got my gloves on. I'm gonna gather up any bits of our clothing that got splattered with zombie juice or anything like that, and I'm gonna say the herbalist who treated me with the infused tea earlier has some acquaintance with my uncle and conveyed a message to him. I will turn many of these items, or I will keep a couple just in case we need them, over to him that he might analyze the taint that is on these items, and thus as an expert witness might testify to the unnatural nature of the creatures that we fought whilst attempting to carry out our duty. I believe such an expert of redoubtable character would serve greatly in our favour if they were to testify that some sort of unnatural creatures had been menacing the village.
I must ask, I thought you didn't trust your uncle.
I do not entirely trust my uncle, that is correct, and we did not part under the best of terms. However, I know that, like myself, he values family extremely strongly, and also, although I still do not trust him 100%, I trust far less this, and forgive me for speaking ill of your home village, Lord Gunter, I trust this village far less because it is, given how the people have responded to us, the strange creatures that roam abroad, the behaviour of the person who is supposed to be their shepherd, Lord Stravitt, and his obvious dabblings in dark arts. If I have to ally myself more closely with my uncle to prove your innocence, and that you were simply acting as any noble should in this situation, then that is exactly what I will do.
Again, I thank you for yours.
Not at
But
all.
you must try and find it in you to forgive the people of Hocken. Life is difficult up there. The winter's cold. It is easy for one to get lost in that dark place.
You'll forgive me for saying so, but I've struggled for many years to make people understand the gift, although some would see it as a curse, that I possess, and everywhere the response has been the same. Not to the extent of this as in this village, but everywhere the response has been suspicion, hatred, ostracisation, and outright violence in some places, as in this. If the reasonable, you would know this yourself, my lord, if you were dealing with a foreign fiefdom, I'm sure that if there was some disagreement, you would have at first try diplomacy and you would try to resolve things in a peaceful manner. However, even the most pacifistic of nobles knows that there is a time when you cannot reason anymore with your foe. They are no longer simply a foreign party, they are a foe, and you must set aside negotiation and deal with them more harshly for their own good as well as yours. And I believe we have now reached that time.
Ideally, the quill should come before the sword. But
indeed. And as I say, did we not come here with the most peaceful of intents? Have we not treated gently with everyone who has attempted to inflict violence on us, aside from Lord Stravit himself, everyone who has tried to cast us out, including the bailiff, etc., the steward? Did we not treat kindly with them? We did not push our noble status on them, although we certainly could have been harsher with them given their treatment of us as nobles, but we chose not to. We took the gentle approach, we took the reasonable approach, we were kind to them. We acted with all thoughts of saving them from these creatures that menaced them, from the dark forces that would bedevil them. And what has been our reward? For you acting as the noble credo demands, we now find ourselves in a situation where you are, and I to a lesser extent, where you are to be judged because you have slain a man in an honourable combat, a man who had raised the very dead of his own village and had perhaps killed them in the first place, and then had stored their rotting, festering, reanimated carcasses. Didn't even give, and my voice is getting a bit more animated now because I'm getting like a bit more worked up. Did not even give those people the decency of a burial. Did not lay them to rest. Did not give their family the chance to say goodbye to them. Did not give them any sort of closure. No, he simply saw them as a means that he might dispose of people who were inconvenient to him, shutting them in that basement and then herding us down there, people who had accepted his hospitality and therefore his protection, as the noble credo states. He herded us down there knowing and believing that it would lead to our doom. When we escaped, thanks to your bravery, he then sought to challenge you, thinking that you would be short work, he would dispose of us, no one would be any the wiser. No doubt he would have claimed it was an accident or some mishap had befallen us on the road. No one would have known any wiser. However, again he proved himself to be the lesser man, and you defeated him as is right and proper. And yet we still find ourselves in this situation. I'm sorry, perhaps I'm not... Perhaps my light does not shine as brightly as yours, Lord Gunter, but I cannot find it in my heart to forgive these people.
Your passion does you credit, and I hope in time that you will.
I want to, as a point of order, sorry to interrupt, Matthew. Burning Wheel is the kind of game where, Bryn, do you want your very elaborate and passionate tirade to affect Gunter in any particular way? Do you want to convince Gunter of a particular idea going forward?
Towards...
I don't really want to convince him. I'm not trying to change his view because, as I've said, part of my sort of beliefs have been that one of the things I like about Gunter is that he's walked through these treacherous waters. He's navigated through them, and he's remained like untouched. He's still like a pure soul. So I don't want to sully that or sort of besmirch that in any way. But all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make him understand my viewpoint, which he certainly seems to be doing. I don't expect him to agree. In fact, I'd almost be worried if he was just like, yeah, we can't save them. Because that would make me think that, maybe he's like on the slippery slope. Whereas I see myself as, I'm sort of like, on the mountain of sort of morality. I'm like sort of halfway up, like struggling against like the winds and the snow, like trying to struggle up it. Whereas Gunter's like stood at the top above the clouds, sort of like with the sun shining on him.
Funnily enough, though, you mentioned that because I was about to try and influence Bryn in what I was about to say next.
Oh, sweet! Let's do it.
We can definitely do that. And when you have given your pitch, we'll jump in about that.
So, what was I? So your passion does you credit, Bryn. The people, I understand where you're coming from. From obviously I know nothing of your abilities, but from me, and as you may have learned, duty, doing your duty, is never an easy thing. It's a hard choice, and that is why we are here. That is why the events have been filled as they have. That to do what is right, to follow your conviction, leads you to these kind of places. And I'm happy to be here to face whatever comes. But your words did speak to me, and I feel that this, if you do not address it, you will turn to hate, and you will take this hate and put it to other people, other villages, other ignorant, um, uneducated members of our society that don't understand your ways, and I don't think that is right. I think, and perhaps I could convince the Duke when he returns to aid you in this. Perhaps you should think about teaching. Maybe, I don't know the right words for your arts, like a school or an academy, or maybe just a place where people can come and learn about what it is you do. Maybe that will take away some of the secrecy, yes, which is with a shield, I think, in the past. But it may bring about a bit of understanding that it's not evil, it's just a perspective, it's a tradition, not one that I know about, but I feel that you could be someone that brings that light to the people of Hawken and the rest of our nation.
All right. So, first order of business, Bryn, can you be swayed by this sort of talk? Is this a possibility?
I think it's a very slim possibility, because although I do see what he's saying, and I think that is entirely sort of in character for Gunter. That's what I'd expect him to say, because as far as I'm concerned, he's like of a higher moral standard than me. Almost he's too like moral to exist in this base world. That's why we're in this situation. Like, there's a number of ways we could have got out of it if we were just like, let's not worry about like being nobles, let's just like be a bit underhanded. And we didn't, because like say Gunter's this sort of like moral beacon almost. But the thing that sort of makes me less persuasive is like, I'm like, if we stick to his sort of way of doing it, they're effectively just going to like snuff out that light of his, and then once he's dead, they can paint him in any light they want. They can make him into a villain. They can besmirch his name. They can call him whatever they want, and he won't be there to sort of say his piece. So I'm like, we need to make. I'm basically like, whatever it takes to make sure, like, I'm not really concerned about myself, but I'm like, whatever it takes to make sure that like Gunter's light doesn't get snuffed out, that's what I'm going to do. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, the world needs people like him to serve as an example to other people. So it's a very, very slim possibility.
Yep, but possible nonetheless.
Yes.
If the fates so decide. So, given that, Gunter, I know that you probably want to speechify, but I don't think this is a speech at all, because you still don't have persuade, do you? No, not yet. So
you would think yourself lucky I wasn't persuaded, because my persuasion's massive.
Yep.
I do have oration when I was orating.
Yeah, the oration part is not this. So we turn again to being learned, and you're doing the thing. You're playing Burning Wheel. This is what you're supposed to do. If you eventually want to have persuade, you need to work at it, and this is what I propose we're rolling right now. Unless you want to persuade with the sword. But
I mean, that is a kind of a finale way of persuasion. It worked for me before.
Yeah, it worked with Stravid.
It worked with Stravid. It definitely showed him off.
He got the point across. So please feel free to roll your persuasion skill that you're trying to learn, and the difficulty, the obstacle is going to be 5.
Just out of interest, what's the consequence for failing this roll? So
the consequence here being, I guess that's up to you because it's Bryn we're talking about.
Okay, well, I would like to say that if this roll fails, obviously, if this is too strong, let me know. I'd like to say if
Oh God.
no, chill out. It's like if he fails this roll, I would like to say that all his speech does is convince me that Gunther's got to be preserved no matter the cost.
Yeah,
So in
he's
other
too
words,
precious.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, you're just such a shining light. I've got to keep you alive, whatever, and it just reinforces my original idea.
Yeah, that isn't entirely. And he's gonna fail because the obstacle is gonna be 10.
Yes, you
So-
know it's going in it. I'm like, let's do it. Obstacle 5.
Yeah, obstacle 5, which is gonna turn into a 10 soon. Yep. Well, I
I
mean,
only fail by 8 though.
yeah, and you have 1 6. so there is that.
Tempting.
In which case, as he says that, I'm gonna do one of those, that half sort of like turns away, like my face falls a little bit into the shadow, and I just say, your willingness to forgive these people despite all they've done shames me, my lord, and it convinces me more than ever that you deserve the chance to say your piece in front of this court, and that they should be made to see the truth that is the essential core of your being. At which point I'm going to turn to like whatever servants or whoever's about sort of keeping it. I mean, is this like a Kosh still about?
No, he followed Butul out because
Okay, cool.
they had business.
I'll turn to a servant and I'll say my uncle is at court and I believe has quarters nearby. I would speak with him and I would ask, in the interests of proving that there is no attempt by myself to escape or avoid whatever judgment comes, I would ask that you accompany me to his quarters.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't quite catch what you said there.
Basically, I'm going to ask the one of the servants to accompany me to my uncle's quarters.
Right, okay.
Basically, just so that if no one can be like, "Oh, you were trying to escape"
Okay,
or
right,
whatever.
Sorry, I thought you were asking for me to come. You was like,
No, it's just the servant, and then I'm gonna, if the servant agrees, which I presume they do, I'm gonna.
I
I'll
have
turn-
business in the castle, but I would like to ask a favour of you, if possible.
Of course, my lord. What favour would you have me do?
The Lord Brutal, who I respect and admire, is a trustworthy man, as you met. He told me something that I feel was either a warning or an indication that I should follow up on, but I feel, with obviously my hands being rather close to the incident, that perhaps maybe you should be the one, or would be the better person to inquire about this, so that I am not pushing beyond my boundaries of hospitality.
And what is this thing that the Brutal Lord Brutal told
Was
you?
it the Baroness the Duchess? Just to confirm, Johannes.
The Duchess, basically the second most important person in this entire area, who is here in this castle. Yeah.
Do you mean the Duchess Vidobin?
Yes.
Yes.
Herself, yes. He told me, I don't know if you heard, that she was awfully fond of Lord Stravitt. Awfully fond. He used the term favourite, which was an interesting phrase. And unfortunately, I do not know the words of court as well as perhaps you do to untangle that meaning.
If the two of them were close, that would imply to me that she had at least some knowledge of Lord Stravitt's indiscretions, if we wish to call them that.
Perhaps.
What is it you wish me to? What is it you wish me to do with?
To
if
know.
I should speak to her.
Perhaps the texture of their relationship, because if she is somehow involved in whatever went on in Hocken, then my Lord Duke is then, or the Duke is then perhaps in some danger, and also her intentions towards me, probably negative.
I sort of move over, and again I sort of like squeeze his shoulder, and I say, it does you credit that even when you are in danger such as this, your first thought is of the danger that someone else might be in.
As you've seen, my way of dealing with things is somewhat direct, so I feel maybe that I'm not the best person when I have someone I trust like yourself to aid me in this.
I will, of course, attempt to secure an audience with the Duchess and find out all I can as soon as I've spoken to my uncle. Be well, and until we meet again.
Stay armed, although we are in perhaps the seat of, our nation. This should be the pinnacle of what we represent. Dangerous times, perhaps, for us both.
Indeed. Be well and be careful until we meet again.
Yeah.
And I turn and sort of walk off.
Yeah. I'll go to the kitchen to get some food for my best boy.
Yep. And on the way, we can have Bryn. You mentioned that you wanted to compliment Akos.
Yes.
On the way, so we can do that on the way. Akos gives you the formal bow as you do.
I do like the equivalent, like curtsy or whatever.
Yeah. And
I'll probably like hold my hand out to him.
And he does the not kissing because it's like and then like the bows and whatnot, and he bids you like a fair evening, and he says, I hope whatever malign misadventures Lord Danek has dragged you into do not drag you down as well.
Thank you for those kind words. I feel that perhaps if earlier in my life I had met a noble, kind person such as yourself, perhaps things might have turned out differently. But alas, that is not always the way of things. I would that I'd met you under different circumstances, Lord Akos.
Not Lord as yet, my lady. We will see to that.
Well, they do say that those of my family sometimes have the ability to speak of things which may yet come to pass. And I put a hand on his shoulder, just sort of gently, and I say, I'm sure when one has a light as bright as yours, your time will come.
Well, you should consider joining the convent here, and you know that there's a convent here for the faith of Tudom, the sort of like state religion of truth and light. You should consider joining the convent here, for your words are quite stirring, indeed, my lady.
I presume, is this convent sort of like, as in like real world convents?
Yeah.
As in you join it, you become a nun, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, in which case I'll sort of swallow it and I'll say, perhaps, however, and I sort of pause dramatically and I'll say, what if my heart should stir in the direction of a particular individual, and I sort of linger my glance on him a little bit too long, and I say, surely such affairs of the heart would be frowned upon by the convent.
Do you want to seduce him? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah.
So, what is your? Let's actually break this down now. For the first time in this entire trilogy. So, there's a thing in Burning Wheel which governs these basic interactions. It's called intent and task. So, Bryn, what is your intent with this interaction with Akos?
Okay, my intent is to imply to Akos that should I survive this with my life and my reputation intact, that I will be seeking a noble husband to ally with my house, which presumably my family is fairly well off since my uncle's at court, etc. So I'm basically implying that, to render it down in sort of base terms, I'm basically applying, like, if you help me out of this, maybe like our two houses can come together, and you're looking for a way to advance your position, being like allied to a fairly well-off noble family like mine.
Yeah, definitely. And then that is the intent. So that is what, if Bryn succeeds in this, she will successfully have transmitted this idea forward to Akos. And then we move on to the task portion. So what ability or skill are you leveraging to achieve your intent?
Okay, I'm hoping to use my persuasion, obviously backed up by the fact that I am of noble. I know this isn't an ability, but obviously backed up by the fact I'm of noble stock. My family's known. They're at court, so it's persuasion backed up by sort of family reputation, effectively.
Yep. We're gonna say that you get an advantage die just because what you said is a possibility. Because like you're saying to him that I'm unmarried, we could have an alliance.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that's true. And if you agree to that, it would be very easy for him to agree to it as well, and you could be off.
Also, I don't know if this is applicable, but would I be able to use my etiquette as a field of related
knowledge? Yes.
Because obviously it's all part of the standard sort of noble etiquette of like a line or two houses sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are lying, you can fork in your falsehood.
to be honest, I'm not actually lying because, as I've said, sort of that aligning myself with this obviously on the up noble family probably would be pretty handy for me as well.
Yeah. It would not be bad. So let's not, because this is the thing, right? We cannot use your falsehood if you're not lying, and you're not lying, so we're not using your falsehood. But you get an advantage die because it's a thing that you could do. It's an actual fact that you're stating here. Like, we could get married and be off like well, and then you can fork in your etiquette skill, because that's like it ties into all of this business here. And you can go ahead and roll. I will get you the obstacle. There are his stats.
So what would my total modifier be? Because I've got a 1 dice advantage, and what do I get for the field of related knowledge?
1 per field of related knowledge. So
I'm on a +2 modifier, 1 for the advantage and 1 for that?
Yep.
Okay.
And the obstacle is 4 because you're rolling against his will, and his will is 4. So.
Okay, I would also like to spend the offer that allows me to double my pool.
If
I've got
that. I don't think you do. You should have, unless I've made a mistake on your sheet here, you should have 2 fate, which allow you to reroll the 6s, and you should have 1 persona, which allows you to add 1 die to your roll.
Okay, so I presumably just put Arthur 1 in this when I'm making the roll.
That's if you're using the persona point on this roll and adding 1 die.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
And would you say the additional complications? Any?
Nah.
Okay.
Oof.
Although it's only put an obstacle of 1 on that. I don't know why.
Huh. Well, anyway, we can go with that because it's not a... Well, you pick. Like, do we go with this? The obstacle is going to be 4, so you're looking to get 2 more successes. However, you have 2 6s there, which you could spend a fate to reroll, or we can reroll the whole thing, and you can...
I'll reroll the whole thing, see if I can get the obstacle right. So, roll skill, modifiers...
2.
Arthur
1.
Base obstacle, there we go.
Yeah.
Base obstacle 4. Right, so
yes.
Initial complications, none.
Okay, and you have 2 6s you can reroll with 1 fate point.
Okay. So,
Oof, yeah, okay. Ooh. It's, I forgot. You don't have persuade?
No, it's one I'm learning at the minute.
Yeah, so...
Although actually, obviously feel free to say no. Would I be able to roll that with my etiquette, forking persuade in?
You don't have persuade yet, but we can do it with etiquette straight up.
Okay. Sorry, I should have thought of that. I keep
forgetting
it's in the being learned section.
Yeah. And this is all a part of us actually learning this stuff here.
Okay.
So
modifiers 2.
Yeah.
Arthur 1. Base obstacle 4. So I'm the 1 off, unfortunately.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? So a failure in Burning Wheel, which like we managed to skip talking about this beforehand, but a failure in Burning Wheel doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that you wanted is not available or doesn't happen. It's just you don't get the exact thing you wanted. So the example I think that they give in the core book is like if you wanted to poison the king, let's say,
Okay.
And you failed that. It might have been that, yeah, the king gets poisoned and dies, but let's say you have your dear brother is at court and he gets blamed for it, so he's up for the executioner's block pronto. So you didn't get, you got the king dead and poisoned, but now your brother's getting blamed for it. So this is the sort of thing that we're going to do here, because I think this is very much on the level of like what business is conducted in the Lion Hollow when courtly matters are concerned. So Akash is very much, because he's a hungry young knight, just like Gunther. So he's looking to make his way in the world, and he like nods along, and he says, "It is fortunate that while we cannot travel back to those earlier days," referencing the fact that you mentioned, like, if we had met before, there are still many summers and many winters ahead for the likes of us.
At which point I'll just say, perhaps it would depend on how this affair unfolds.
Very well, and he gives you a look, because he's not like, he knows what you're up to. You performed well, so he knows what you're saying. He says, "I will endeavor, my lady, to do all that is in my power to make the day appear and the morning dawn when you no longer have to worry about things such as these, and we can all move on to more pleasant topics and issues."
I say thank you. That brings great comfort to me. I can see that you're a kind soul, and I'm going to take like one of like my pocket handkerchiefs out, and I'll pass that to him, and I'll say, please accept this as a small token of my great esteem.
He accepts it, bows again. He takes off his glove, and he puts it in like underneath his vambrace, and puts the glove back on. He like inclines his head and says, "I must be off with the bailiff."
Of course, I'll be counting the moments until we meet again.
Yeah, he's off with one of those like slow motion, like
toss of the hair.
Yeah, toss of the hair, the dreamy curls like landing away from his face, so we can see his perfect profile as he walks away.
I feel like as he walks away, like I'll be there, like, what a guy.
There he goes.
Yeah, I'm like, where did that 3-piece orchestra come from as he like walks away?
Yeah. There's someone like serenading right next to you. Yeah. Okay, so you both go on to your business. The servant is going to follow you, Bryn, to your uncle's quarters. Gunther, before we get to the evil necromancer uncle, which is going to go well, Gunther, how do you have anything else to do? You're in the kitchen. You can pick up something for Hans.
Yeah, so I'm making something of in Hans, and while I'm doing this, I'm thinking what I know about court, what I know about the people here. I'm trying to think of someone who, like a neighboring, I don't know what the correct term is, duchy, province to Hocken. So I just want to try and find a local lord and inquire if they've also been having issues. Like if this problem is bigger than just my home village, and if it is, then I can request that they at least can stand and say the things he said does match up with what I found in my province as well.
Okay. Let us see.
I don't know if I need to make a roll for this.
Yes, we're gonna roll circles for this.
I thought so because you mentioned there's like an
Yep.
NPC generational
Yep.
thingy, Bobby. It's a very RPG technical term.
Yeah, that is a very specific scientific term. So your circle stat relies on the life paths that your character has. So Gunther was born noble, then he was a page, and then he was a squire, and then he was a knight. So you will have the easiest time finding NPCs who are favorable to you from those particular like life paths, basically. So if you wanted to find a knight, you would have a vastly easier time than you would have if you wanted to find, let's say, a farmer, because you don't know any farmers because you didn't. That's not where you grew up. However, if you wanted to find a local lord, a lord is not one of your life paths, but you are in. You were born noble, so you have been like it's in that particular setting of life paths. There is lords, so it's not
saturated in that life.
Yeah, so you can try to find lords as well. It is going to be more difficult for you, however, to find one who is amicable and or helpful. It's not that you cannot find them, it's about how do they feel about you.
Okay.
Circle stat. Yeah, find your circle stat and then
attribute circles B2.
Yeah, and
that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound high.
No, the obstacle is going to be 3 because its base obstacle is 1, and then it's a +2 because it's within the same setting. So you were born noble, and lords are in that particular category, but you are not 1. So
right.
Yeah. So obstacle 3.
I have a 2. Do I get any modifiers?
Yeah, actually, sorry, I entirely passed over that. So we turn to your character sheet, and above your Artha section, you have a reputation as a poor knight of no means but great promise, and then you have an affiliation, a 2-die affiliation with your. That's your. Ooh. So you have a 2-die affiliation with the Duke's household.
Yeah.
That's not going to help you here because the Duke's household doesn't have any country bumpkin lords in it.
But it is useful.
But it's not useful to you in this particular instance because you're trying to find one of those country lords. But I think we could use your 1-die reputation because you're a poor knight of no means but great promise.
Yes.
So you would get whatever it asks in the roll thing. You could get like 1 bonus.
1 modifier.
Yeah, modifier 1. Yeah, and obstacle 3.
And what's the consequence of me?
The consequence is I'm going to invoke what's called the enmity clause, and that means you find the dude. However,
he's he's not okay. Ooh,
you have a 6.
There is a 6.
If you want to spend a fate,
100% going to roll this.
You get it. You get it. So, do you want to name this fella? Basically, this is Stravit's neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, Lord, or lady. That's the thing as well.
Okay. Give me a second.
If you want me to do it, I can do it. But
yeah, actually, you know what? I feel like you understand this scenario better, so you go ahead. Yeah,
okay. So I think we're going to go with a a lady, and I'm going to put the name in chat. We're going with Lady Rothberg. Is going to be the.
I was going to go Battenberg, but that's fine.
Yeah. So
Where do I find this lovely, or not so lovely, depending on how I encounter a lady?
basically, you get something from the kitchen for Hans. Presumably, you take it back to Hans, or is Hans with you?
You know what I'm going to do with Hans? Before I go to the lady, I'm going to feed the pooch. Then I'm going to briefly man up with Bryn, and I'm going to get the dog to like follow Bryn as a kind of like a guard dog.
Okay, Bryn. So as you're as you are making your way with the servant to the quarters of your uncle, you bump into Gunther, who is followed by Hans, who has this, I presume, like a bone in his slavering maw.
I'll sort of do my normal sort of like reach down and like ruffle him behind the ears.
I'm going to send my best weapon with you when you go to see the Duchess and your uncle.
I am of course grateful, Lord Gunther, but is his place not by your side protecting his lord?
He is where he needs to be, and where he needs to be is with you in your quest. At my behest, I shall send you with what I can. I cannot come with myself. Hands.
I only wish that I accept, of course, this very, very generous offer, my lord. I only wish I had some protection I could give you to help you in your allotted tasks. Unfortunately, that there is I have precious little to offer. So please, just
you have already provided protection by surviving that terrible night.
Then please just go with my hopes and my wishes for your safe return.
I will. You will. Off I go again.
And we part the dog now following me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you meet up with Lady Rothberg, as it's some kind of a ball, you think, in one of the larger halls of the castle. It seems to be organized by the Baroness Termfalke. Yeah, it's a ball. There's some light food, some drink, a whole lot of nobles in fancy get-ups. There's a little bit of dancing, a whole lot of socializing, and you find Lady Rothberg over there. She is, I think, an elderly noblewoman, attended to by like a like a score of handmaidens, a retinue of her own, and she's having a bit of some of this like cocktail type food that they maybe serve here, alongside with some fine wines. She's sitting down against one of the walls of this particular hall, and she's nibbling at the offerings.
How old is this lady?
Let's go with 60 going on 70.
Okay.
Getting into the part where you die.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious. I don't know if this would require a roll or not. Just curious to see if she and my Faja were on good terms or not. If our family has history at all, or is that something that I just decide?
You don't know.
Okay.
You don't exactly know.
Even better. Let's roll this.
But we know, as players, that she's not. I did not invoke the enmity clause because you made the roll. Yeah. So baseline, she's good with you.
Okay.
Yep.
I shall when a moment appears that I can, I shall approach the Lady Rothberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she hands off the little plate to one of her handmaidens and rises up, like straightens out her finery, and offers a hand and
I shall
says,
kiss the ring if there is a ring, or
yeah, there's multiple rings. There's an embarrassment of riches for you to choose from.
I will go with the one that looks the most expensive.
And
I have no idea.
Suck off the diamond. Yeah, the Lady Rothberg says, young Gunther,
my lady,
you have made it to the ball.
I have in time for the great meeting. I appreciate you taking a few moments to speak with me. If I may sit,
But
and
of
we can
course,
just talk for a moment.
very good, very good. And she like gets one of her handmaidens to get you for like a goblet of wine.
Very kind. Very kind. I'm going to get straight to it, Melody. I think you'll appreciate my honesty, as is my custom. I like to directly engage my issues.
I would expect nothing less from a knight.
I do not know if you know me or by reputation, but I certainly know you, and you are of good standing and wise counsel. And I come to you for help.
How may I be of assistance, young Gunther?
I recently returned from my hometown of Hocken, as you know, if you are my father. I'm a local resident there, on a missive from the Duke, even though he is not here. I was acting in his stead in this matter.
Mm-hmm.
I uncovered some malign forces at work there. And unfortunately, it resulted in me having to dispense justice to one of my betters. It was not how I would have liked to have gone about it if given the option, but the Lord insisted on resolving it through violence. I triumphed, and I believe that should have settled the matter, but I am to be put on trial. Now, I do not ask for you to vouch for my innocence, because I can speak for that in regard of what I've done. But what I would like, if possible, is for you to, if this has fallen within what has happened to your province, to inform the members of the council about any strange incidents in your own lands, any unusual creatures, any shambling men that should be, shall we say, dead. I hope I don't have to shock you with these tales, but I know that you have a strong stomach.
Are we discussing what is it called? The village drunkard with the shambling gait?
No, no. I am talking about men who should be dead, but have arisen once more. Their heart does not beat, and their eyes do not blink, but yet they move.
I did not take you for a student of the old fancies. Have you spent much time in the library, young
I
Gunther?
do study the old histories, in fact. One should know the history of the nation he's from so that he can better serve it. But I trust what I can see and what my blade can taste, and it felt those things. So I would be curious, being a neighbor to my homeland, if you have experienced anything similar.
Well, being that I do not apparently read the same books as you, young Gunther, I cannot vouchsafe for this exact thing, but I can assure you there are no, how do you say, men whose hearts do not beat, that walk when they should be dead. That seems like something that a jester would say.
And I would a few weeks ago believed such a thing myself, but I have seen it, I have witnessed it, and I have.
Well, that seems like the reason then for why Stravit retired when he did 2 years ago.
Did you know Stravid well?
As much as anyone knew. Well, I guess his patience more so than others. I myself, healthy as a horse, I have
I
not
can see that.
had a sickness in my life, and well, I am still here. My late husband, gone now for, and she takes a moment, must be going on 20 years now. And Yes, I do not. I was not his patient. We ran in different circles. We were neighbors, amicable. The relationship was, as I recall. A recluse.
Had you seen him in recent years?
No, he retired from the court 2 years ago,
And
if
that was the
memory
last
serves.
anyone saw him.
Well, I wouldn't know if anyone saw him, but that's the last I saw him, as he didn't appear for 2 years.
Have any of your people under your service mentioned anything unusual going on your lands? If you do not mind me asking.
No, I keep a tight leash. There is the occasional peasant who has bad ideas, but I imagine that is the case everywhere, even beyond our own fair lands.
How sincere does she appear to be?
Well, you can make a roll. You can roll
I have a feeling that
perception.
my sincerity radar will not be up to the task. But is this perception?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yes, because I actually have perception.
Yeah, because it's you cannot not have it.
You think so? What would be the difficulty for this task?
So you're trying to figure out if she's being honest.
If when I'm asking these questions, she appears to be holding back information.
Yeah. I think obstacle 2 for this.
Okay. Smash it.
She doesn't like Stravit,
Mm.
but she's not like, that's the thing that she's holding back. She's not saying that guy was not my favorite at all, but like everything else is like she's just rattling off the list of things that it's polite to say in court, but she doesn't like Stravit.
She probably likes him better now he's gone.
Yeah, I mean that's not something that she's gonna say.
Yeah. Okay, well, I won't trouble her more. I thank you for your time, lady. I appreciate your counsel, and I understand if the words I said were confusing. I hope that you don't have to witness these things yourself.
Well, I suppose we will see tomorrow then.
And if you do have any strange occurrences on your land, and I am able to assist, do not be afraid to request my aid. We are both in this together.
Very good, young Kunta. Yep.
Straight off like the nobleman I am.
I fuck off like the noble that I am. Bryn. Fast forward. You are in richly attired chambers of Abigail Gravemore, your evil necromancer uncle. And it never gets old saying that. There are rich tapestries on the walls. One of them is what we would look at as maybe like some sort of a woven description of a solar system, maybe.
Okay.
Like a rudimentary idea of like the celestial spheres, and then there are like fanciful, like fantastical, wall cloths of maybe like old tales. So there's like a dragon creature, like a lizard creature being destroyed by brave knights and that sort of thing. And the room is thick with incense smoke, and there is an incense burner in the corner, still like belching. Belching off incense.
I know how much my uncle loves like his incense, so this doesn't surprise me.
And I think the man he's thin to the point of being like a stick figure.
Yeah.
And he has very unassuming, plain, black clothes that do fit a noble from the court, but he's making a very deliberate attempt at not being flashy, because he doesn't need the attention. So he's dressed in like fairly unassuming, modest finery of a noble, and there are multiple bookshelves in his quarters. And this is the point where we actually need to decide. Bryn has been very open about her magic. So from that, I've extrapolated that magic isn't per se banned by any official degree, because otherwise, like, Bryn wouldn't have been doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So is Abakai the court sorcerer, or is he like a courtier who dabbles officially?
I think perhaps his title is not like officially like court sorcerer, but I expect he's rather seen as some sort of like high placed like academic and sort of sage. But like most people who are sort of in the know and who deal with him regularly know that he's got these abilities. But it's one of those sort of like hear no evil, sort of see no evil things. You know, a lot of people like this sort of, they'd go to him and they'd ask him for favours, knowing that like he can get stuff done, and they don't inquire too deeply about exactly how he gets them done.
Right. He has, I think, several like exotic animal heads as well mounted on the walls, like a southern, like from the southern bits of this land. There's like this massively tusked, some kind of a warthog creature, like a rhino head. A lion pelt is on the wall, and the servant follows you in, stays by the door as the door is closed, and you step in. He turned he was reading some sort of a massive manuscript on his desk. He puts the cloth page marker on the thing, closes it with a thump. It's one of those big Gutenberg fuck off Bibles sized things, and he rises up and like smooths his clothes and Bryn, this is an unexpected pleasure.
I walk across the room, and as I did when I was his apprentice, you know, sort of like I'm gonna sit down with like my legs under myself on the floor, sort of next to him, you know, almost sort of symbolising the fact that I once sat at his feet and learned the arcane craft, like, literally sort of doing that. And I'm going to look up at him, and I'm going to get straight to the point. I'm just going to say, I'm sure you appreciate, Uncle, that it is not easy for a person to admit that they are wrong, that they have been mistaken. So I'm sure you'll appreciate that this is very difficult for me. However, I'm just going to come out and say it as plainly as I know how. When we parted, not under the best of circumstances, which I'll admit was as much my fault as it was yours, I held the belief that even the common man could be made to understand to some degree that the forces that we can wield can be used for good as well as evil. I believe that they did not need to be frightened or cowed by our abilities, that they could be made to understand and accept them. And I know that caused harsh words to pass between us and for our ways to part. However, in the recent weeks and months that have passed, I've come to realise that I was mistaken in that assumption, and it is not easy for me to admit it, but admit it I do.
Okay, so we have, I think, a clear intent here, but let's delve into that. So, what do you want to impart to Abakai over here?
Okay, the way I'm sort of imagining this is, as we discussed previously, the reason Bryn sort of walked away from her uncle and they sort of had this falling out was he was very much sort of an ends justify the means sort of fellow. You know? It's like, yeah, I've got to delve into some unsanitary, some would say unholy stuff, but as long as the ends are good, It's just what I've got to do. Where I was like, oh no, there's got to be a different way. That's what makes people scared of magic. They don't see that it's like a wondrous, sort of enchanting thing. And if we only sort of explained it to them and we sort of reached out a hand of friendship to them, they would understand this and they would sort of embrace us more. And then obviously over the previous weeks and months, we've been treating people kindly. I've not been sort of using my spells to inconvenience people. I've only been using them sparingly to try and like, preserve our life. And literally all that's happened is we've had people try and kill us, try and like throw us into zombie pits. We've now got people trying to try us for a murder which wasn't actually a murder and put us to death. So I'm basically trying to get across the fact that like you were right all along, Uncle. I was wrong. I apologise, and I am done with those common people.
So basically, getting like back into Abacai's good graces here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to do is, as I finish saying that, I'm going to sort of getting across that idea that like I want to mend the rift between us, and I'm now ready to like rededicate myself to his way of viewing things. I'm going to sort of stand up, and I've got my staff with me, and I'm going to say, this staff that I whittled with my own hands after I left your apprenticeship as a symbol that I was ready to strike out on my own, and that I was so clear in my belief that you were mistaken. I now break to show you that I'm ready to rededicate myself to the true way of doing things. And as I say that, I'm basically going to like break my staff over my knee, and then just sort of like almost like carelessly just like throw it down as though like I'm discarding my previous beliefs and leaving them behind.
Yeah. And Abacai watches this with his hands behind his back. He listens to you, and he watches you break the staff. And as you cast it aside and look back upon him, he closes his eyes and he bows his head. He's got, I think, he's balding because he's a little bit older fella. He's balding. His hairline has receded up here. He's got the rest of it though fairly like stylized by the barber in the castle. He like runs his fingers through his remaining turning to white hair, and he says, "Well, Bryn, I have heard a thing or two, but I do believe that you have illuminated me much better than these messengers that have spread word of what happened in Lord Stravitt's lands. Let it be known henceforth that there is no enmity between us, and we are one as is our blood. I accept your contrition. I offer perhaps I was too hasty with you in those days before.
I sort of hold my hand up and say, it is not that you were hasty, Uncle. It was that I was too young and inexperienced to truly hear what you were saying. You were right all along. The only way people will understand the abilities we have is if we make them understand. They do not have the, as you always said, they do not have the capacity to understand the forces that we can wield, albeit a humble dabbler like myself, even.
Very good. Very good. You do remember we discussed previously there's a distinct cost to these things when they are done my way, he says, and there's that like ominous, like the soundtrack implies that this is the thing right here. This is the crux of things. So he says that there's a cost to all of these things when they are done my way.
I stand up and sort of like looking at him very, very calm and collected, sort of like, but with my head a little bit bowed to continue showing my contrition. I say, this trial that is arranged, it is the plan of those involved to sacrifice a man, a good man, who has always served as an exemplar of the very system of nobility that we all claim to follow. They intend to sacrifice such a man simply to ease their consciences and to allow them to sleep easy at night. What respect could I have for people who are so willing to sacrifice their own beliefs because it is convenient for them? If there is a price to pay for preventing this travesty from happening, I would pay it gladly.
He nods at you and he fishes, like moves some stuff around on his table. He fishes out what looks like a fairly large. It's probably not a diamond because it's big, so it's probably some lesser form of a gem or jewel, but it's cut. It's kind of like a prism from some crystalline material, and he holds it up. There's fairly low light in the room because, it's getting to be like nighttime, actual like full-on darkness.
Yeah.
So yeah, he has some candles in there and like a lantern or two maybe, but it's still kind of hazy. But he holds up this prism crystal and he looks at the servant who stands by the door, staring at his like boot tips, because this isn't one of his favorite rooms to be in, because Avikai has an air about him. Let's just. So he passes this prism across from like where his gaze goes towards this servant. He passes it a couple of times like this over his view of the servant, and he says, "Who is this person you speak of? This lamb to be sacrificed to wash away other people's inadequacies?"
He is a knight, albeit a knight of poor means, but one of impeccable character, who goes by the name of Gunter. I don't know if you have heard of him.
He blinks a couple of times and touches his temple, and he says, "Is that the child of Danak?"
I nod.
Hmm.
He is
all grown up.
Indeed, and he is an exemplar of the qualities that people at court claim to hold dear and cleave to, but by the light of his goodness that shines from him serves simply to illuminate the hypocrisy of the other people at court, and that this trial of him makes a mockery of those values that they claim to prize dearly.
What would you do to avert this fate for this young Sir Knight?
If it would save Gunter without a stain on his character, and would show the others for the hypocrites that they truly are, I believe that no price is too dear to pay.
Do you have a plan for how to accomplish this?
Alas, no. I've spoken to a younger knight by the name of Akosh, a handsome individual who...
He scoffs immediately when he proceeds from his name to like, "Oh, he's so pretty." He's like, "Pah," and like motions for you to like, "Don't."
Then all I will say, Uncle, is that I believe the young knight is besotted with me and will attempt to render aid. It is my intent to garner what support I can from those who are present here, to if nothing else, regardless of the verdict, to ensure that this situation is seen for the travesty that it is. If we are to be found guilty of this murder, which I wasn't aware that someone dying as a result of a duel was a murder, but if we are to be found guilty, then I would have the people who accuse us know that they do so for their own ends, not out of some misguided sense of their nobility. I would have them see themselves for what they truly are.
Having a man confront his flaws of character and inner weakness is something that even my craft struggles to achieve. So I do not know if you will be able to do this. However,
well, Uncle, I apologies for interrupting. It is my belief that you may or may not be aware that Lord Stravid dabbled in certain of the arts himself.
Well, I should like to think so, for he was my apprentice.
Then you may also be aware that he attempted to slay myself and Gunter by herding us into an area populated by revenants raised by his arts.
Pray tell, and he seems amused. Pray tell, where was this area?
I give him the layout of like where it was in his cellar, and I say these shambling revenants were crude clay, nothing like the arts I've seen you yourself wield, but still no less dangerous because of that. After all, a sword within the hand of a clumsy peasant is still a weapon. Now, it is my belief that as a man of honesty, Gunter will attempt to relate this to the rest of the court, but I'm sure that none of them will even believe that such creatures exist, let alone... Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, there was a... You cut out for a bit there.
Okay, so I'm basically going to say that Gunter's an honest man. He's going to tell people that we were attacked by zombies. And it's my belief that most people at court, sheltered as they are, will not even believe such creatures exist.
Of course not.
Let alone take his account seriously. If there was some way to at least make them believe that it is a possibility, I believe this would go a long way to securing Gunter's release.
So would you then have me walk in front of the Duke's throne and proclaim, with the credibility that I alone in this castle have, and maybe in this dukedom, would you have me walk in front of that throne and give credible witness that there are such things as revenants that walk when they should be dead? And he doesn't have like any particular tone to his voice. He's just like, is this what you want me to do?
I would say it is my belief that if certain people of respected authority and learned nature, such as, and I mentioned the herbalist name, and of course yourself, were to attest that there are creatures in existence called by forces into being that many people are fortunate to have no experience with, enough to sow doubt at least so that people do not simply discount Gunter's testimony out of hand, I believe that would help a great deal.
This is quite a thing you ask. It is.
Indeed. And as I've said, if there is a price to pay to secure your assistance in this regard, then I would pay it gladly.
You do realize that they will mark me as one to not associate with, and I will be glad to retain my position at court at all. And in worst case scenario, if the Duke or the Duchess, or, well, I wouldn't believe it of the bailiff himself, but if someone is feeling particularly, let's say, bloodthirsty, I will be happy to receive a sentence of exile. And he seems amused, and he's like proposing to you, like, are you aware that this is what I'm looking at if I do this thing?
I nod and say then, perhaps then a testimony is not such a great idea.
No, it is, dear Bryn. I'm not saying I'm not willing to do it. I'm asking, Do you realize what you're asking of me?
Of course. However, perhaps, as I was saying, a different kind of testimony may be valuable. Many people, as you have said, you are one of the few people at court who understands the nature of these forces and how they are used. Imagine, I'm not making a direct request here, Uncle, but imagine, if you will, whilst Gunter is sure to testify about the horrors that we felt, and I said like smirk when I say horrors, so I'm like, psh, not really horrifying, but other people think they're horrifying, plebs who don't understand magic. I'm like, if while Gunter regales the trial with the accounts of these horrors, imagine how much weight it would lend to his testimony if perhaps some of the creatures from the Lord Stravitzer manse lingered still and were to either make an appearance or cause problems in the area, or creatures of a similar nature.
Speaking
such
of
that
which,
they could not be that their existence could not be discounted.
no, I believe my word carries enough weight for me to convince the court. We do not necessarily wish to unleash anything here. Speaking of which, were you or this Sir Gunther exposed to a certain black oil in Stravitz's basement?
At which point I take out, because I said I was getting most of the sort of cloth with all the goo on it to the herbalist, but I specifically said I was keeping a couple back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take out one of those, and I'll say, "Are you referring to this, Uncle?"
Yes. Have you come into contact with it?
We were not exposed directly to it. Upon my instruction, but Gunter was extremely careful not to expose himself directly to it.
Very good. Very good. You should keep it that way. I will testify. I will come to your aid in the court. I will make it sure that the court understands the nature of what Stravit was up to. It will not make me look good in the Duchess's eyes. However, I will deal with the fallout when it comes. However, I have just realized, and he motions towards the servant that he's been looking at here, I have just realized that we have an extra pair of ears that has been witness to what we have discussed here, which is unfortunate. Would you say, Bryn?
I sort of pause a little bit, and then I say, yes, quite unfortunate.
He puts the prism into his left hand. He raises his right hand and like makes a fist of it and utters a single word of power, which like you've seen him do this sort of thing before. He utters this magical word, which is he doesn't speak very loud, but it's like a rock hitting your soul basically when you hear it, and he makes a pulling motion with his fist, and the servant walks. It's just like there's no one home at all in the servant's head as the servant walks forward, and still holding his fist up. Abishai Gravemore tells, Hans is safe. He doesn't give a shit about your dog. He tells the servant to kneel, and the servant kneels, just completely devoid of any cognitions in the eyes, and he gives you the prism, if you're willing to take it, and he says, I did never get around to teaching you this particular art, but it is, I suppose, a gateway into the soul. Aside from the charlatans reading palms and pulling cards and whatnot, this is the true art, with the prism. This man here, married, unfaithful, actually, the reason for the marriage was a less than desirable union, shall we say, in his younger days, whatever they may be now. His path has been marked with base urges that he has barely managed to contain. He spends whatever the Duke gives him on cheap wine. You see the Duke's armies, the ducal armies, camp followers. He visits them at night, sometimes a couple of times a week,
I see.
to partake of whatever they offer. I make no judgment on that front. However, I say this to, well, I suppose provide a counterpoint to your assessment of the nature of Sir Gunther, the knight which we wish to preserve come tomorrow. This man serves us. He will amount to nothing at all in life. He's an active harm, I suppose one could say, in other people's lives. Maybe not violent, but he's well, he is not of any consequence to anyone. However, you are, and so is he. And he calls out, says, Lukash, you can come out now. And from his, like a wardrobe that he has his stuff in, comes Lukash, the kid from Stravitz Manor, the son of Tomasz, the forester.
Yep.
This is Lukash. I believe you have met before.
Yes, we have.
Very good. It transpires that Lukash's father and himself, of course, happened upon Lowenhöller, and Lukash has become, I suppose, sort of an apprentice of mine in the past day when him and his father arrived here. So we are all of consequence here. Lukash is also gifted. I bet you did not know this.
No, although I had noticed that he had a certain inquisitive air about him, which served him well in my regard.
Mm-hmm. I think we shall have a wonderful, wonderful future. However, well, this man cannot go about discussing whatever has transpired in this room. He does not write, so that much is thankfully beyond our need to address. So Bryn, you said that you would progress along the path that I have blazed, and I accept your contrition. As I said before, I offer my apologies for whatever failings I might have had, might still have. But I see now, with the three of us, we have a future, which is of severe consequence. I have seen it. And he motions towards the sort of like solar diagram on one of his tapestries. I have seen it in my auguries. And what remains is but the covenant to be signed. And he continues to hold one of his hands in a fist. The servant remains just completely blank of any idea. And he holds out like a very sharp letter knife from his table, and he offers it to you, Bryn. He says, "We must remove his tongue, or else he will prattle on about what has transpired here, and we do not need this, at least not before tomorrow."
I take
Thankfully,
the knife and I take like a halting step towards this fellow, and then like turn back to my uncle as he carries on talking.
Yeah. Thankfully, he doesn't write, so we do not need to take his life or his hands. Off with his tongue.
I will sort of say I've sort of gone a little bit deadpan because I'm trying to sort of squelch down any like feelings I might have of, this is wrong, because I'm like, and in my mind I'm like, just got to do this, get through it
for the greater good.
Yeah, I said I'd do whatever it took to like make sure Gunther survived, and like this is what it's going to take. So I'm going to take a step towards the guys. I'm going to carry out his instructions, and I'm going to say, but Uncle, what about the things he has seen as well?
The man cannot write. He cannot speak. There remains little he could do.
At which point, what's the? It's like is it like stone walls in here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this this letter opener and just like I'm gonna look for like a bit of a soft stone or some mortar or whatever. And
mortar.
Just very crudely, I'm gonna like draw like a sort of just a very simple, almost like childish drawing, and I'll say it is still possible to convey information, Uncle, even if one cannot write.
He smiles very slightly and he says, "Well, I thank you for your attention to detail, and I invite you to provide the solution."
Okay. At which point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the man, and I'm going to cut out his tongue, because this is the price I've got to pay.
Yeah, he does nothing. He's just there.
What I would also like to do is my spell that allows me to join things together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about to get magical up in his house. I'm going to. My plan is basically I'm going to sort of move my hand as I'm sort of cutting his tongue out. I'm going to put my hand over his eyes as I'm sort of like making it so he won't see it, and then I'm going to use that spell so it's going to sort of like meld his eyelids to like the bottom of his eyes. So as I take my hand away, he'll be blind as well, effectively.
Yeah, we don't necessarily need to roll for that or anything. We'll just like keep going with it. So
I'm sort of rationalising it in my mind, because I'm like, it's a slightly more humane way of doing it than just being like,
yeah.
And then I'll cut his tongue out, like I say, and then I'm gonna move my hand away, and his eyes will just be like melded over.
Abakai like releases whatever hold he has on this man, and the man is like, ugh, like falls onto the ground, just like clawing at his face and like trying to comprehend like what happened to him. Abakai takes, I guess it would be some sort of like a ceramic thing for putting your like pipe ashes or whatever, like knocking your pipe off. And from his table, he takes it and like puts it under the man's face for a little bit as it like just balls on the ground. Gets some of the blood that's like spreading out of his mouth. Gets some of the blood in the bowl, and he takes out from one of his locked boxes, like drawers actually on his desk. He takes out parchment, which is, as he opens it, it's filled with just the most obscure, arcane writing and symbolism you've ever seen. And he takes like a feather pen, quill, gives it to you and offers you the bowl, and says, "Lucas as well, come along. We shall consummate the covenant for our future," and basically invites you to write your name on the parchment, where you can see his name as well.
Yeah, I sign my name like directly under his, rest the quill on the bowl, and then hand it to Lukash.
Yeah. Lukash is like, maybe he's not comprehending it or something, but he seems very much not disturbed by what's going on. And Lukash does his like basically like an elaborate L, because he doesn't know how to do much more than that. But the intent is what matters. So you sign it.
What I'll try and do is, seeing that like Lukash is obviously struggling to spell his name, and we're going to be in this like covenant together, so it behooves me to start forming a relationship with him. I'm effectively going to take out some of my writing supplies, and I'm going to, like on a little bit of parchment, like write his name, and then sort of hold it out so he can just like copy it.
Yeah, copy it. Yeah. So he does. And Abakai takes the quill and like throws the bowl of now quite coagulated blood into like a trash bucket that he has. Like the he rolls up the parchment, puts it away in the locked drawer, and says, "Very good." And somehow the room seems darker now. It's very good.
That does not surprise me one minute.
He is not a conjurer of cheap tricks, as it turns out. It's very good. I shall be there tomorrow to render whatever aid I can, and we shall deal with the consequences as a family. Welcome, Lukash, to our family, to our house.
I sort of turn around and I try and give Lukash like what I hope, despite the fact like I'm very conflicted about what's going on. I hope it's like a comforting smile, and then I'll say, "Well, I did always want a younger brother."
Yeah, he seems,
and I welcome him as well.
Yeah, he seems pretty happy to be here, despite the awful goings on that he's witnessed, and I think we fade away from that scene with everyone putting like, "Hey, we're a family now. Isn't this great?" Okay. So I'm conscious of the time, so let's check in. So how much time do we have left?
Okay, I've probably not got a great deal of time left, to be honest, because I need to get to bed not too late this evening, because I can't keep the wife up.
Right.
So I mean, I could probably do another half hour, but
yes. Okay. So there is.
I'll unmute myself.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
I mean, if this needs to be a two-parter to end it, that's fine too, mate.
Basically, what's there, unless you guys want to like do a whole thing during the night, which we can do if you want to have like a two-parter. We can do that. We can also, like, Gunter does one more thing, and then we move on to next day and have the like hearing stuff.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I only had one more thing I was going to do, and that was it.
Yeah. So do you guys want to wrap it up now? We can do that.
I was going to say, the only other thing I wanted to do was I needed to talk to the Duchess, as Gunter asked me to do.
Ah, okay. Well, do you guys want to wrap it up today? Because we can definitely wrap it up in, like, let's say half an hour.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, cool. So in the interest of that, rapido. So the Duchess, unavailable to Bryn. You are stonewalled entirely with no recourse by everyone guarding the access to the.
That's fine, man. I've got evil mojo on my side now. So.
Yeah, you and we spent a lot of time on that
You've
because
made a hell of a deal.
yeah, because I like apologies to Günther as well if necessary, but I wanted to spend the time as long as John and through John Bryn was willing to go along with Abikai's bullshit, because it's like he's no little man. So now that like Bryn went full on with Abikai, that's something that we invested in, and Bryn went the whole way. So that's a thing. So Günther, your one thing. What did you want to do?
So kind of like almost like the last meal before a condemned man. I wanted to just go and speak to my Fajo.
Yep, you can definitely find him. So where do you want to meet him?
I'm going to say overlooking the training grounds. You know where they used to teach man at arms. He took me there as a boy, to sort of see this is what knights do. This is to train. This is the future for you if you work at it. Yeah, I'll ask to meet him there, if possible. As the sun's going down and night's rolling in.
Yep. So you meet at the training grounds of the castle then, or like a balcony above. Yeah. So he's there, and he nods at you and says, "It has been a while, Günther."
It has, Father. It has.
I am much pleased to have you here. What happened in Håkon, I could not warn you or send a letter. I did not understand. I thought maybe there were bandits or some such. I heard word, but and he just sort of like stammers his way through, like explaining that. Sorry, I didn't give you notice. I was at our home like manor, but I did not know about this stuff.
Father, it is fine. I understand that since our beloved mother left this mortal realm, that you've not been the man you were, in a sense. You haven't been out and about, and that I understand is we all grieve in our own way, and I don't take that from you. I hold no ill will that you weren't able to assist me while I was here doing my duty, and I wanted to apologize that I did not come to see you, but as you taught me the manners I'm accustomed to, that I should go meet with the Lord before dealing with family business. And
yes.
I did not have the opportunity to come and see you. And since this may be the final night I am as a free man, I wanted to take the opportunity to see you. And thank you for everything you've done for me and taking care of my mother. And I hope that I've done you proud before dawn comes.
You've done all that a father could have asked, and more besides. Who would, when given the chance, stay and face? Well, you could face the news come morning.
If
it takes a man
so be it.
to face that, and if that is what I have accomplished,
Father.
Yes, I am very proud. I'm very proud, and if you, the man who stands before me now, is to be my crowning achievement in this life before Tudam takes me, I will die a happy man. And I will speak highly of you in the halls of light.
I will as well. I should warn you. If I'm giving a last wish, if it does come to the end of me, I will request that you be instated as the Lord of Håkon. Partly to put the things right that Stravit did there, which you may or may not be aware of.
I am now.
But also give you something to strive for in your later years. A gift, a new purpose. I hope you take it well.
Well, it would certainly be something, but let us worry about the trial first, shall we?
I'm not worried. Justice will be done.
Justice will indeed be done. You may or may not know, but Butel is a just and honorable man.
Mhm.
And from what I know, it is only the cause of justice that he serves and the law. So I would urge you, my son, to accept whatever judgment he renders. Let us fold this matter like an unpleasant letter, and let us sweep it under the rug as quickly and with as little noise as possible. As I said, Little is a just man. He will not be cruel to you. He will not be cruel to Bryn, the Lady Bryn, as I understand she is of title as well. Do not, my son, make the mistake of angering anyone in these proceedings.
I will do my best, and I will face this as I have always done, with dignity and honor. And I look to the future. I hope for this will not be my end, but we will see.
Very good. And he hesitates for a bit, and then he comes in for a bear hug.
It's like that. He's almost forgotten.
Yeah, because it's been a long time.
Yeah. Remember me well, Father.
And he tries to raise you up in the bear hug like he did when you were like a little child, and he can't anymore. He can't anymore because you're a full grown adult now, and you've got your armor on. So he kind of goes in for the, and then he laughs it off because he's trying to do something that he did 20 years ago, and it doesn't work anymore. He claps you on the shoulder and he says, "I will see you in court tomorrow."
See you in the morning.
And he walks away, and as he does, with you silhouetted on the balcony, by the dusk, he gets out his handkerchief and he dabs, hidden from your sight. He dabs the corners of his eyes.
It must be raining.
Yep. These moments will be lost in the rain, as you know.
And then I will head back to get a good night's rest, because if you're going to face the news, better get a full night's sleep.
Yep. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're not going to use the Duel of Wits subsystem that Brainwheel has for kind of things like this. A courtroom drama is something that we could do with the Duel of Wits, and I've set, if we want to take a quick look in Roll20, I've set up a deck for cards to do the Duel of Wits with. So basically the way that this would work if we use the Duel of Wits is both sides, so in this case Butel, the Duke's bailiff, and then probably Gunther is going to be the one to speak, because Bryn at least has indicated as much, that Gunther is going to be presenting the case. So Gunther and Butel would face off in the Duel of Wits subsystem, and the way that works is they pick 3 actions in this sort of social situation. They pick 3 actions in sequence to execute, and then face down in this, they would be represented by the cards. So they would choose 3 face down cards to have on their side, and then we reveal in turn, the first card will reveal what is that. So maybe Butel chooses a point to make. So what that means is Butel is making a point. He's stating the case. You were discovered with a bloody sword over the top of Lord Stravitt's bloody corpse. Ergo, you killed him. That would be a thing that Butel would do. And then maybe in an ideal case, Gunther would have picked something like rebuttal for the first action, which would fit very well against Butel's point, and then Günther could present his own point and also like rebut the point that Butel is making. It's like an elaborate, like an argument system, which is not to make anyone change their minds, but to come to an agreement, which is one of the things that I really enjoy about Burning Wheel. The dual width subsystem is absolutely brilliant. But we don't have time for that now, so we're not going to do that. We're instead going to condense this down to versus roll. So Günther, we fade out from this evening, and we fade into the court. So the hearing takes place in the Duke's audience chamber. So there is the stone carved throne of the Duke on a dais. However, it is empty because the Duke isn't here. On the same level as the rest of the court, the audience chamber, is a simple wooden chair and a wooden table for the bailiff to do the thing, because he's running the court, basically. Various nobles and courtiers have been assembled. There's guards, there's servants, all basically everyone who can in the castle is packed into this to see what happens. There are separate, like higher up on upper stories of the castle in this chamber, there are balconies for the higher up nobles, presumably, because the Duchess is nowhere to be seen. Probably the Duchess is somewhere up in those.
It could almost be described as a theater.
Yeah, it's basically a theater, with your station determining like how high up are you, and Butel has just finished like stating his case, which is basically like his whole thing here is justice needs to be done. You are guilty of a crime and you need to be punished accordingly. But he doesn't know all the things, and he doesn't have any ill will towards you. So he presents his case very neutrally, basically that you killed Stravit. That is true, and we need to consider that. And Günther, you provide the defense, basically, in this case. And you will be aided by Akos. Akos is going to give a testimony, I think, because Bryn will not really successfully, like, we don't know yet what the consequence fully of that failure of Bryn's role is going to be. But for now, Akos is providing you with help, and so is his dark eminence, the voice behind the throne, Abigail Gravemore, the evil necromancer uncle. He's going to be throwing his hat in the ring as well. But before we get into all of that, Günther, give us a short summary of what you put forward as a defense for you and Bryn, because you both stand accused of the murder of the peer of the realm, Lord Stravit.
Okay, so I would open with the kind of sort of recontextualizing of what I'm accused of. I'll say yes, Stravit is dead at my hands. However, this is not a murder. This is justice. This was done as a duel, which can be witnessed by my companion. I did not butcher him. I took him down. There was no malice in this attack. He's a known duelist. This is not something out of the realms of reasonable possibility. And then I would segue into the reasons this is justice, the crimes he has committed, what he has done to the town of Hawkin, how he has consorted with things that I do not truly understand, but this caused a malady. I would suppose I'd try and temper it a bit to not make it sound so fanciful, that he made the people sick, and we were attacked, and he tried to murder us before this duel. So the first crime was committed by Stravit to the town of Hawkin, then to me and Bryn, and then But the audacity of me, of challenging me to a duel, unfortunately lost. And it's the sort of short version.
That's good. Okay, so from what I'm picking up is you don't say zombies are real. There are monsters.
While talking to the lady was not helpful in the sense Rothberg did not provide me with, shall we say, an ally. She did provide me in a sort of understanding of how to explain to the car, because she just thought I was talking about nonsense.
Yep.
So I took that in.
Yeah, and that is smart, because that would have been a bad idea. And so very well done picking up on the fact that if the lady, what's her name, Lady Rothberg, if Lady Rothberg was like, what? Like, are you citing like children's tales to me? Like, what's happening now? Probably not a good idea.
Which was really useful, but not in the way that I was hoping for.
Yeah, it's a different kind of useful, but useful nonetheless, and you leverage it to the fullest. It would have been a bad idea, and there would have been mechanical consequences to that foolishness, but you sidestepped that. Okay, so we're gonna make a roll now. This is where
get that oratory skill on, boy.
Yep. Yeah, get that oratory going. And Bootle is going to use his oratory as well. Bootle is... let's see. Where are you, Bootle? There we go. Okay. So Bootle has... Where is that? So he has oratory 5, and he doesn't necessarily have a lot of things to fork into that, especially because he's not going to be. He's above things like using intimidation. That is beyond him. Let's see. Yeah, I think he's going to be straight up oratory 5 on this. And User, Gunther, how is your oratory?
Pretty good. Good, but not something that has won me the. Actually, I did all right.
Yeah, you did pretty well.
Have you got anything you can fork into it?
Can you explain how that works? Just
okay.
A little bit, so
yeah, let's see. I'm looking at your skills a little now. So
you have maybe would work a bit.
Well, let's just say that if you fork in etiquette, so will he. So that's up to you then. Like if you get into like, oh, the procedure is this and this, he's gonna be like, two can play that game.
Ooh.
But basically, yeah. So etiquette would be a thing that I could see a case for. The rest, not really.
Could I? Oh, wait. This is going to be tenuous, but I'm going to try and get it in the back of the net.
Let's hear it.
So I'm going to go ancient history, right?
Mm-hmm.
To harken back. So this is like when logic fails, use the emotional argument. Harken back to tales of knights. You know, I'm trying to represent what we're trying to be. I'm trying to bring justice. You know, I may not have done it in a way that they believe, you know, follows all the, you know, T's and C's as much as I tried. But, you know, just like such and such and such and such, I brought the Duke's justice to this town. I may be a
Are you hearkening back to the days of, like, the knights being the law of the land, like you dispatching justice instead of the bailiff?
Yeah.
Oh,
is that dangerous? Is that bad?
No, I mean that's a brilliant, like, and good on you. You're playing Burning Wheel correctly. So you spin a bullshit yarn, and I think it works.
Not like I'm disrespecting. I'm saying
no. I know.
In him not being there, I had to do my duty.
Yeah. So what things are you going to fork into your oratory? We know that ancient history is now one of them. You're citing like Arthurian legends, like, oh, and Lancelot murdered a lot of villagers and it was good.
Just go all in, man. See if you can get some poetry in there as well.
It's just
Fucking-
reciting.
Yeah, you use an ancient history, like work in some like epic ballad about some like
Yeah.
honourable knight.
I could. I don't even know how many can you fork in.
As many as you can fit
All right.
and justify.
Buckle up, mate. It's going to be a long night.
So I'm gonna talk about my sword and my
Everything.
axe.
I'm also twirling a knife around while I'm doing it.
So is it only? I'm guessing it's only ones that I've actually learned, not the ones.
Yeah, things that you have, skills wise.
Ooh. Can I use my sword? And the sword is again. No, listen. Wait. Let me
Yeah?
get there. The sword.
Who are you gonna kill?
No. The sword I will present as evidence to show like the damage, the sort of staining of the ichor did to my blade as evidence of the malady that he put in the men. Like it's
That's
strange.
a good point that you're making, but the skill isn't for that. So
Good try.
Yeah, you're on the right track, but the track is wrong. The sword skill itself is your skill at using the sword. So what you would need here is another skill. Basically, you would be talking about something else, not
Yeah,
the use
medicine,
of the sword, because that's what you know.
Right, okay.
You know how to kill man with sword, and that doesn't
Damn it,
help.
burning wheel. Damn it, just when I thought I had
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, you do, but it's there's a lot more, is what I'm saying. But yeah, so now we have your base oratory plus 1 from ancient history.
Can I use conspicuous? Right, this is like, and basically fair that Strava had been directing his duty because he'd not been to court in several years. He'd retired, but there were
So
things he
let
needed
me stop you right there. So conspicuous is you drawing attention to yourself
to. Oh, I'm not.
and being
I'm innocent.
conspicuous. Yeah, I will. Yeah, that's
Is there any way I can assist with this?
Yes, yes.
If Gunther's like taking like his sword out and he's talking about the ichor and whatever, and obviously I've still got one of the cloths with it
Yep.
on. I do have like alchemy as a skill, so
Yep,
I can talk about the properties of
Yes.
this goo.
Yes, you can hand one of your alchemy dice to Gunther. So I'll keep a tally actually now because we're scrounging. So oratory plus 1 ancient history, and then plus 1 from Bryn.
And also, if I can chuck in one of my falsehood dice, I'll quite happily lie to make Duke Stravitt sound even more bad.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's one thing from you, so the alchemy is already as much as you can get.
Fine.
So I guess that's up to you then. Like, do you want to lie about Stravitt or talk about the ichor?
I'll talk about the ichor mainly because, although I've sort of fallen from the path that Gunther's blazing, I don't think he'd appreciate me like lying in his defence. So I'm just going to keep it to the facts about the properties of the ichor.
Yeah. So I think Gunther, unless you have other bullshit up your sleeve, I think this might be as much as you two can scrounge up.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. So you will get 1 more from Akos. And
I don't know if we can bring the herbalist in as like a consultant when we're talking about the ichor, because like he's like an expert witness about properties of stuff.
Yeah, you can. However, his testimony, I think, will be massively overshadowed by your uncle's.
All right, Fabio.
So, yeah, because he's the big guns.
Yeah.
So let's see. So you get 1 from your ancient history, 1 from Bryn because of our alchemy, talking about the ichor, and then 1 from Akos, who talks about, it's like a character witness count. So talks about your chivalry, basically, bigging you up, and your skill in arms as well, something he testifies to. And then you don't exactly know what Abakai Gravemore has done, but he will come and testify. He will give you 2 more.
I think as well, just for flavour, when sort of Abakai steps up and gives like his dark testimony, I'll sort of, I won't say anything directly to Gunter, but I'll give him like quite a sort of sad look in his direction. Because obviously, like internally, I sort of like know like what I've had to do to get his help, but I don't want to say anything to Gunter. I'm ashamed.
You're the Batman.
Dark Knight.
So Gunther, feel free to roll your oratory and add in 5 modifiers for the massive help. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, no, I was actually talking to myself. I was like,
Yep.
This is the big one.
And then I will revisit Buttel. So he has his oratory, and then
5.
I guess he will be forced to fork in his rule of law skill, because it's what he does.
If I input my Arthur, what does that do again?
Arthur, if you still have, and I think you do have your persona point, yeah. So that gives you 1 more die if you put 1 in that.
I mean, yes. Okay, now for the blade. What is the difficulty?
The obstacle is just 1. We need to see how many you get.
Okay. Oh yeah,
yeah. It's a versus thing. Yeah. Oh.
Any 6s?
3 6s, which is appropriate, I think.
Get that sweet reroll going, Gunter.
If you have Arthur fate points left, yeah, you can reroll 3 dice. So just roll 3 dice if you want to.
So I had a personal. I had 1 fate point and a personal point. Can I use both? Or
Yeah. You can use both here.
So I can reroll 3 dice.
Yes.
Okay. 6. Come on. Don't roll 65 dice. That would be awkward. Okay.
2 more. You rolled a massive success over here. Let's see what Buttel manages to do. And this would have been, I think, dramatic in a different way if we had time to use the dual wits, but this is what we'll do right now. So oratory, and then 5.
I do love a courtroom drama, you know. Just like it's one of my guilty pleasures.
So Buttel, oratory.
I bet he's really good as well.
Yeah, he has 5 in oratory. He's gonna fork in rule of law because that's what this is about. And and Verdorben wise, because this is that duchy. So here we go. Let's see how Buttel does. 1. 1.
This is what I mean. You don't have to. Facts aren't important, guys. It's the emotional argument. It's convincing them in their hearts who is innocent in this instance.
Oh boy.
I look forward to my promotion.
Poor Buttel. He's it's almost like he's been ensorcelled by a dark force that acts against him. Good. So this simulates.
He doesn't even have any 6s to reroll.
No, and 2 1s.
So I'm just imagining now, like when he gives like his counter argument, and like just falls flat, and Gunter's like, "Yeah, boy."
The only way I could be more successful if the undead bear came running into the chamber now, and I just punched it out in 1.
Yeah, and he just like ripped off the head.
Thing.
Yeah. Okay, so this simulates like a couple of hours of like argument, basically, in the audience chamber of the Duke Verdorben, and eventually it comes down to, let's see, because he tanked that roll like super hard. Let's see.
It's almost like his heart wasn't in it.
Yeah, and it's kind of true as well. Like he didn't want you to get like hung or anything. Sorry, I'm just browsing the material here for a bit. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think you are found not guilty. It is ruled that it wasn't murder, but it wasn't an actual straight up duel either, because there's undeniable proof that it wasn't. It could never have been a duel because Stravit was in his clothes and you were wearing armor, and that's not how duels work at all. So it cannot be a duel, but it is established that you're not guilty of murder per se. You did not commit that crime, and it is ruled a sort of an accident, and you are acquitted of this debacle. However, Abigail Gravemore is there's another trial immediately afterwards. Abigail Gravemore is denounced as a heretic in the eyes of Turam, and he is condemned to exile into the eastern reaches.
On what crime? What does he do?
Unlawful knowledge. How does he know enough to drop these bombs? He explained all about the black oil, about how Stravit was basically he just like slammed Stravit down as a practitioner of something forbidden, like dark alchemy and stuff like that.
He's been bad.
And then the court, being the bloodthirsty, entitled, basically enjoyment seekers that they are, they're like, well, now, like we get two.
I do know so much about the dark arts.
Yeah, we get 2 trials on one day.
I did a foundation course on it.
So it's a very quick farce. Butul doesn't even handle it. He gets like a deputy to do it or something. He goes away with you. Abakai is just straight up exiled. He looks to be not phased at all at this. And he is escorted to the gates, and well, he has a horse because he's a noble as well. So he's given his horse and his stuff and what he can carry, and he's escorted out of the castle and exiled to like beyond the eastern border.
I presume both myself and Lukash will be going with him.
Yeah, that is like what is the montage here? That is entirely up to you. You guys won the day, so.
So I imagine as because I'll obviously stay for my uncle's trial, and I won't speak to Gunter between the 2 trials, like partly because I'm ashamed and partly because I suspect I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So and although I sort of accept the fact that I did what I did to help Gunter out, I don't really feel like worthy to be in his presence anymore. So what I'm going to do is I will leave with my uncle with Lukash as well, and I'll just leave like a little like letter for Gunter, and it'll just simply say, in order to, although I always knew you were innocent and you were the man I believed you to be, a heavy price was paid to ensure that everyone else could see it. I wish you well in the future, and I'm sorry for what had to happen. And then it would just be signed with like my initial at the bottom of it, and that would just be like left for him like in his quarters or somewhere where he'll find it, or like tucked into the for a bit of extra poignancy, like tucked under the collar of his dog when I send it back to him.
Yeah. reach to scratch the dog, and it's like, what's this?
This.
Yeah.
Gunter will repeatedly try and see Bryn, but for some reason she's never there when I'm wanting to see her. Right. I think that's kind of about the mystery. I never actually get a chance to say some parting words. Afterwards, I will do as I said I would. I'll try and get my father instated as the Lord of.
Mm-hmm.
Try and bring some stability and peace to the place.
Yep. So you will be immediately embroiled in. There's other people who want that land, and they are saying, "Well, look at what happened. Like, young Sir Gunter, Danek, goes there, kills Stravit, albeit like he was acquitted in court, but goes there, kills Stravit, and now his father is going to take over the land. How convenient." And that is like your immediate future, dealing with these other people who want that land.
Yeah, it is a tough political situation because it does look like I have a vested interest in that that eventuality. Who better than someone? I will probably as well, maybe as a sentimental thing, get my sword engraved. And it will have like, and the shaft, for lack of a better word, like the main thing just before the guard, it'll have like a little branch in the shape of Bryn's staff. To remember the first time I saw action.
Unbroken,
yes.
Yeah, I think perhaps that's the bit where you can have, like, as you to sort of ramp up the sort of poignancy, perhaps as you sort of walk out with this sword with this sort of staff on it, perhaps as you're sort of walking past the quarters that Mordecai used to occupy before he was exiled, and Bryn and Lukash went with him, you maybe see like a servant walking out, like holding like the two halves of like the broken staff. They've just been sort of cleaning up the room and whatever.
Yep.
Nice symbolic. I like it. Obviously, lots of food for hands. Got to look after me dog. Dog.
Yeah, I guess like this, we fade out on like the panning shot of like outside Lowenhölle, where we can see in the distance a bunch of horses like heading out towards the east, and then like we like pan in towards the castle itself, and there's a quarters which you haven't really had your own as such, Gunter, but now you do. So you have quarters in the castle.
Am I still a low-born like pawn knight, or have I took a step up in the world?
There's no, I think there's no escaping the fact that you come from not as such like distinguished family, but you have quarters now. You're not a lord yet.
It's not where you start. It's where you end up.
Yeah. So you're like, the idea being here that you have your own home now in the castle. The Duke approves.
What I will say is Gunter is a man of his word in the sense that he doesn't forget either. So once the political situation is resolved, he does return to Hocken with the law to ensure that justice is served for those that did attack us.
I think it's entirely in keeping if we just wrap this whole thing up in like, you have your own quarters in the castle. You're now a part of like the Duke's personal guard, and elevated in that way. You don't have a title yet, but still, like, you're going up, and you head back home with your father, and everything's settled in your manor. They're deconstructing the Stravit manor because it's a place of darkness now, and it's still winter. And in one of these winter evenings, there's a knock on the Danek Manor door, and you answer it, and there's a peasant. They're like, "My lord, a monster came out of the night." And well, you instantly think back towards the bear that's still in the loose, and we just like fade out from this whole thing with Gunter getting his sword, like strapping it on, and like getting the horse and riding out into the night towards the
Squire,
village.
get me the Unbroken.
Yeah, and then ride out into the night, brandishing the light that has perhaps dimmed elsewhere, but not here, not this hour.
One day I too will save Bryn.
Yeah, so that is it. That is the Twilight in the Duchy Verdorben. Our take on it, anyway.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for running it, Hannes.
Yeah.
I hope you have enjoyed running it as much as I've
Yeah,
enjoyed
that was a lot of fun.
hamming it up as a knight.
Yeah, absolutely loved it, man. Absolutely loved every episode of it.
Yep.
Been great fun.
Hopefully we have given... Obviously, we've made a lot of mistakes here. We're getting acquainted with the system and everything, but hopefully we have provided some window into the, in my opinion, wonderful world of Burning Wheel. And I'm sure that this won't be the last that we hear of Burning Wheel in these internet areas.
Indeed. Right, well, thank you for, obviously, to Johannes for running this, and Matthew for being my fellow player in this. I've absolutely loved it, and thank you for allowing me to stream and sort of broadcast this, guys. I think all that's left to do is say thank you for anyone who's watching. Like Johannes said, you'll probably see some more Burning Wheel from us in the future. Until then, take care. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.